In the vibrant fall of 2010 in New York City, Eleanor Vance found the love she thought would last forever. But what happens when the person you love and your best friend betray you in the most painful way imaginable? Imagine your world crumbling in an instant, leaving only ashes of what was once trust and friendship. How do you rise from devastation when the wound is so deep? And is it possible to find a new beginning far from the shadows of the past? Prepare for a story of love, betrayal, and the search for resilience in life's most unexpected corners. Hello, my name is Eleanor Vance, and I want to tell you a story about a time when the world, as I knew it, shattered into a million pieces. It was a time of innocence, of naive trust, and of a brutal awakening. The year was 2010, a vibrant autumn in the heart of New York City, a place I had always considered my sanctuary. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and the distant hum of city life, a melody I had grown to love. I remember the exact moment I met David. It was at a small, bustling coffee shop in Greenwich Village, a place with mismatched furniture and the best almond croissants in the city. I was 22, fresh out of college, and brimming with the kind of optimism only youth can afford. He was leaning against the counter, a book in hand, his dark hair falling casually over his forehead. Our eyes met over the rim of my latte, and a spark undeniable and exhilarating ignited between us. He had a smile that could disarm anyone, and in that instant, I was utterly captivated. Our first date was a whirlwind, a walk through Central Park as the sun dipped below the skyscrapers, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. We talked for hours about our dreams, our fears, our favorite books. He was a struggling musician, I was an aspiring journalist, and we both shared a fierce love for the city and a hunger for life. It felt like destiny, a connection so profound it transcended mere words. The city lights twinkled around us, mirroring the stars in my eyes. Sarah, my best friend since kindergarten, was the first person I told about David. We were inseparable, two halves of a whole, navigating the complexities of life in tandem. We'd grown up together in a quiet suburb of Boston, sharing secrets, dreams, and countless sleepovers. When I moved to New York for college, she followed a year later, and we found a cozy apartment in Brooklyn, our sanctuary in the sprawling metropolis. Her eyes lit up when I described David, a genuine excitement that warmed my heart. "He sounds perfect, Elle," she exclaimed, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm as we sat on our worn-out sofa, sharing a pizza. "You deserve someone amazing." Sarah had always been my biggest cheerleader, my confidant, the one person who knew me better than anyone else. Her approval meant the world to me. I showed her a picture of him, and she smiled, a knowing look in her eyes that made me believe this was truly something special. David quickly became a fixture in our lives. He'd join us for our weekly movie nights, bring us coffee in the mornings, and even helped us paint the living room a cheerful shade of blue. He was charming, witty, and always made us laugh. Sarah and he developed an easy camaraderie, a playful banter that I found endearing. I loved seeing my two favorite people get along so well. It felt like my world was finally complete, a perfect triangle of love and friendship. Life in New York during 2010 was a vibrant tapestry of experiences. The city was recovering from the economic downturn of 2008, and there was a palpable sense of resilience and renewed hope in the air. We spent our weekends exploring art galleries in Chelsea, catching indie bands in the Lower East Side, and picnicking in Prospect Park. Every day felt like an adventure, a new chapter unfolding in our young lives. One evening, David and I were walking hand in hand through Times Square, the dazzling billboards illuminating our faces. He stopped, turned to me, and with a nervous smile, asked me to be his girlfriend. My heart soared. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was sincere, and in that moment, under the glow of 1,000 lights, I felt like the luckiest woman alive. The city, usually so overwhelming, felt intimate and magical. Our relationship blossomed. We fell into a comfortable routine of shared meals, late-night talks, and quiet mornings. He'd play his guitar for me, his voice a soothing balm, and I'd listen, completely lost in the music. We talked about the future, about moving into a bigger apartment, about our careers taking off. It all felt so real, so tangible. I trusted him implicitly, believed in his every word, every touch. Sarah was always there, a constant presence. She'd often tease us about our love-struck gazes, but it was always with a warmth that assured me of her unwavering support. We were a trio, a small, unbreakable unit against the vastness of the city. Her laughter was a familiar comfort, echoing through our shared apartment. The first hint of something amiss was subtle, almost imperceptible. It was late spring, 2011. David started spending more time at a new recording studio in Brooklyn, working on his demo. He'd come home late, sometimes with a faint scent of unfamiliar perfume, which he'd dismiss as the studio's air freshener. I tried to push away the flicker of unease, attributing it to my own insecurities. The studio was in a grittier part of town, not far from the old industrial docks, a place I rarely visited. Sarah, ever observant, noticed my quiet moments of doubt. "Everything okay, Elle?" she'd ask, her brow furrowed with concern. I'd brush it off, not wanting to burden her with my nascent anxieties. I told myself I was being paranoid, that David loved me, that our bond was too strong to be threatened by something as trivial as a late-night work session. The city, usually a source of comfort, sometimes felt like it held too many secrets. One sweltering July afternoon, David called to say he couldn't make our dinner plans. He had to pull an all-nighter at the studio, a last-minute session with a new producer. I was disappointed but understood. His music was his passion, and I wanted him to succeed. I spent the evening with Sarah instead, watching a rom-com and eating ice cream, trying to shake off a persistent feeling of loneliness that had begun to creep into my days. The heat of the city was oppressive, mirroring the growing tension within me. Later that week, I decided to surprise David at the studio with his favorite homemade cookies. It was just after midnight, the streets quiet and dimly lit. The old brick building was dark, save for a single light spilling from a window on the second floor. My heart pounded with anticipation, a mix of excitement and a strange, unbidden fear. The air was thick with the smell of damp concrete and something metallic, a stark contrast to the sweet aroma of the cookies in my bag. I found the door unlocked, a faint melody drifting from within. It wasn't David's usual soulful rock. This was a softer, more intimate tune. As I pushed the door open, the sound grew louder, accompanied by hushed laughter. My breath hitched. The scene before me was a tableau of my worst fears. David, his back to me, was sitting at the piano, and beside him, leaning against his shoulder, was Sarah. Her head was tilted, her hair brushing his arm, and they were singing together, their voices intertwined in a way that was far too tender. The cookies slipped from my grasp, clattering to the floor, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. They both froze, turning slowly towards me, their faces paling. Sarah's eyes, usually so warm and full of life, were wide with a mixture of shock and guilt. David's jaw tightened, his gaze avoiding mine. The air in the room became heavy, suffocating. The melody died, leaving only the ringing silence of a shattered world. "Eleanor," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible, as if she was afraid to break the fragile peace. But the peace was already broken, irrevocably. My vision blurred, tears stinging my eyes. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, a sharp, agonizing pain that stole my breath. It wasn't just David, it was Sarah, my best friend, the one person I thought would never hurt me. The city outside, once my comfort, now felt like a cruel, indifferent observer. I couldn't speak. The words were lodged in my throat, choked by a wave of nausea and disbelief. I stared at them, trying to reconcile the image before me with the people I thought I knew. The studio, which I had imagined as a place of creative passion, was now tainted, a stage for their deceit. The flickering light cast long, accusing shadows on their faces, highlighting their guilt. David finally found his voice, a strained, hollow sound. "Elle, please, let me explain." But there was nothing to explain. The scene spoke volumes. The intimacy, the hushed laughter, the shared song. It was all too clear. My mind raced, replaying every subtle glance, every late night, every excuse. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, forming a monstrous picture of infidelity and deceit. I turned and fled. I ran out of the studio, out into the humid New York night, the tears streaming down my face. The city lights, once so magical, now felt like mocking eyes, watching my humiliation. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away from them, away from the suffocating weight of their betrayal. The sounds of the city, usually a comfort, now felt like a chaotic symphony of my own despair. I ended up in a small, deserted park, collapsing onto a cold metal bench. The night air was heavy, but I shivered, a deep chill penetrating my bones. My phone buzzed incessantly, notifications from Sarah and David, but I ignored them. I couldn't bear to hear their voices, to read their hollow apologies. The pain was too raw, too fresh, a gaping wound in my chest. The world felt utterly desolate, devoid of color and warmth. Days turned into a blur of grief and anger. I barricaded myself in my room, the apartment suddenly feeling too large, too empty without Sarah's presence. Every corner held a memory, a cruel reminder of what I had lost. The shared laughter, the late-night talks, the dreams we had woven together, all shattered. The city outside continued its relentless rhythm, oblivious to the storm raging within me. Sarah tried to reach out, leaving countless voicemails, sending desperate texts. Her voice was laced with remorse, but I couldn't bring myself to listen. The image of her with David, their heads together, their voices intertwined, was seared into my mind, a constant torment. How could she, my best friend, do this to me? The betrayal felt deeper, more personal than David's. David also called, his messages filled with pleas for forgiveness, explanations that I knew would be hollow. He spoke of confusion, of a moment of weakness, but his words rang false. The trust I had placed in him, the future we had envisioned, crumbled into dust. The love I felt for him twisted into a bitter resentment. The vibrant city life I once cherished now felt muted, gray. My landlord, an elderly Italian woman named Maria, noticed my reclusiveness. She'd leave plates of homemade pasta at my door, her silent way of offering comfort. Her kindness was a small balm in my ocean of despair. I was grateful for her quiet understanding, for not pressing me for details. The small acts of human connection were a lifeline in my isolation. One morning, about a week after the discovery, I finally forced myself out of bed. The apartment was eerily quiet. Sarah had moved out, leaving behind a note that I hadn't read. I walked into the living room, the cheerful blue paint now feeling like a mockery. The space where we had built so many memories felt hollow, echoing with ghosts of laughter and shared dreams. I picked up Sarah's note. My hands trembled as I unfolded the paper. Her handwriting, usually so neat, was shaky, tear-stained. It was a confession, a desperate apology, a plea for understanding. She wrote about a growing confusion, about David being there for her during a difficult time with her family, about feelings that had developed unintentionally. It was a weak excuse, a flimsy attempt to justify the unforgivable. I crumpled the note, the sound like a gunshot in the silent apartment. Unintentionally? How could betrayal be unintentional? It was a deliberate act, a conscious choice that had ripped my world apart. The anger, which had been simmering beneath the surface, boiled over. It was a righteous fury, a burning desire to reclaim my dignity. I knew I couldn't stay in that apartment, surrounded by their ghosts. New York, once a city of endless possibilities, now felt like a prison of painful memories. I needed a change, a fresh start, a place where their shadows wouldn't follow me. The decision was sudden, impulsive, but felt undeniably right. The city's relentless energy, once inspiring, now felt draining. I started packing methodically, almost robotically. Each item I touched brought a flood of memories, both good and bad. I sorted through photographs, tearing up any that included David or Sarah. It felt cathartic, a physical act of severing ties, of erasing their presence from my life. The process was painful, but necessary, a step towards healing. My journalistic instincts, dormant during my grief, began to stir. I started researching small towns, places far away from the hustle and bustle of New York, places where I could disappear and rebuild. I found a promising lead in a quaint town in Oregon, a place called Astoria, known for its rugged coastline and artistic community. It was a world away, geographically and emotionally. The idea of the Pacific Northwest, with its misty forests and dramatic cliffs, appealed to my need for solitude and renewal. I sold most of my belongings, keeping only what fit into a few suitcases. The process was liberating, shedding the material weight of my past. I booked a one-way train ticket, a symbol of my new beginning. The journey across the country would be long, a time for introspection and healing. I was leaving behind not just a city, but a version of myself that had been broken. The vast American landscape stretched before me, a canvas for my new life. On the day of my departure in early September 2011, I took one last look at the New York skyline from my apartment window. The city was bustling, vibrant, indifferent. It had witnessed my joy, my love, and my heartbreak, and now it watched me leave. A single tear escaped, a silent farewell to the dreams I had once held so dear within its embrace. The memories, though painful, were a part of my story, a lesson learned. The train journey was a blur of changing landscapes, from the urban sprawl of the East Coast to the vast plains of the Midwest, then the majestic mountains of the Rockies, and finally, the lush greenery of the Pacific Northwest. Each mile was a step further away from the pain, a step closer to an unknown future. I spent hours staring out the window, lost in thought, processing the raw emotions of the past few months. The rhythmic clickety-clack of the train wheels was a constant, soothing companion. Astoria, Oregon, was everything I had hoped for. A small, picturesque town nestled at the mouth of the Columbia River, surrounded by towering evergreens and the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of salt and pine. It was a stark contrast to the concrete jungle I had left behind, a sanctuary for my wounded soul. The town felt ancient, steeped in history, a place where stories unfolded slowly. I found a small cottage overlooking the bay, a cozy, unassuming place with a porch swing and a garden. It felt like a fresh canvas, a place where I could paint a new life. The sound of the ocean waves crashing against the shore became my new lullaby, a constant reminder of the power and resilience of nature. I started writing again, not just for work, but for myself, pouring my emotions onto the page. I took long walks along the rugged coastline, the wind whipping through my hair, the vastness of the ocean mirroring the depth of my healing. I met new people, kind and gentle souls who didn't know my past, who saw me for who I was in the present. I started to rediscover myself, the woman I was before the betrayal, and a stronger, more resilient version of her. The solitude was not loneliness, but a space for growth. One chilly afternoon in the spring of 2013, almost 2 years after I left New York, I received an unexpected email. It was from Sarah. My heart pounded as I saw her name in my inbox. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the delete button. But curiosity, and perhaps a flicker of residual affection, compelled me to open it. The screen glowed, illuminating my conflicted emotions. The email was short, concise. She was in Astoria. She had seen my name on a byline in the local newspaper. I had started writing for the Astoria Sentinel. She wanted to meet, to talk, to explain, to apologize in person. My breath caught in my throat. The past, which I thought I had left behind, had suddenly caught up with me. The peaceful calm I had cultivated felt threatened. I stared at the email, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. Anger, hurt, confusion, and a faint, almost imperceptible tremor of something akin to longing for the friendship we once shared. Could I face her? Could I ever forgive her? The thought of seeing her again, of hearing her voice, brought a fresh wave of pain. The quiet sanctuary of my cottage suddenly felt vulnerable. I walked to the window, gazing out at the turbulent waters of the Pacific. The waves crashed against the rocks, a powerful, relentless force. My life had been like those waves, tossed and turned, but I had found my way to shore. Now, the past was knocking, threatening to pull me back into the undertow. I knew I had a choice to make, a decision that would define the next chapter of my life. Would I confront the ghost of my past, or let it linger, forever haunting the edges of my new beginning? The sun began to set, casting long, dramatic shadows across the bay, leaving me suspended in the twilight of uncertainty. This was another incredible story from our channel. Life teaches us that it's never too late for justice, revenge, or redemption. Every story you heard here is real, experienced by people who found strength when everyone thought they were defeated. If this story moved you, tell us in the comments. What do you think about this situation? Your opinion matters to us. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the bell so you do not miss any of our exciting stories. We have new tales of betrayal, intrigue, and revenge every week. Share this video with someone who needs to know that it's never too late to fight for it properly. Sometimes the best revenge is living well and showing that it's possible to solve all problems. Thank you for being part of our community. Until the next story, remember, every ending can be a new beginning. See you in the next video.